Ministry of Education, I have a bone to pick with you. Why are so many Jamaicans ignorant of their own history? Why so much dunce people in my comment section? Oh my God, people, stop it. The Jamaican accent is not an African dialect. The Jamaican accent, like everything associated with modern Jamaican heritage, is in fact the byproduct of the cultural melting pot that our motto embraces. In fact, in terms of cadence, it's most similar to an Irish accent. My fellow Jamaicans, me come for drink milk, but be there cocoa. It is abundantly clear to me that there are people who live foreign and identify as Jamaicans, but you don't have one of these. And while you're entitled to your opinion, one is a set a rascal does. So let me set the record straight. Number one, Jamaica is not an African nation. It's not a black country. We identify as an ethnically diverse society. People, please just stop it. Out of many, one people, Jamaicans. We do not hyphenate and we do not encourage separation by race.
Greetings, my Jamaican people. Welcome back to my YouTube channel once again. And in today's episode, you're getting to see that a Chinese Jamaican influencer once made headlines by making comments with regards to Jamaicans not being Africans and also throwing jabs at the nationality and ethnicity of the Jamaican people. This conversation went on to become viral, and it raised so many questions and conversations that up to date, some Jamaicans are still talking about it. And as you've seen in the introduction of these videos, some of the statements that she's making is quite outrageous. As to most Jamaicans, she is actually trying to lecture them about something that is deeply related to their identity, their origin, and their roots that go back to Africa, in which it generally defines their history and identity in Jamaica. So in today's episode, we are going to have a conversation about this, and I will kindly request that you watch the rest of this episode while I come with my commentaries at the end of it.
Number two, this one's mine. This is my granny own. This one is my mom's, and this is grandpa. Yeah, it's hardcover. Grandpa died a long time ago. If you are planning a trip to Jamaica and you don't own one of these, you're going to have to book a return flight from where you came. These are the rules. I'm just laying it down for you. If you go to Jamaica and you don't have one of these, immigration will stamp your passport and give you a set amount of time that you're allowed to stay in Jamaica. And if you overstay, you're welcome. We put you back on a plane and we send you back. You, not me, you back to the country from which you came.
I've been shook enough now, to be honest, since the racing is a bit tired now and the legs are like jelly, but yeah, I suppose we did a bit of celebrating and did the podium thing and got to put on the podium pants as well.
You see, as early as 1656, Oliver Cromwell ordered 2,000 Irish children to be taken to Jamaica and sold to English settlers. The extent of Irish immigration to Jamaica was so prolific in the centuries to follow that 25% of Jamaican citizens can claim Irish ancestry. And this includes Bob Marley and Marcus Garvey. So if you never know, now you know. Again, out of many, one people.
So there's a video going around of what appears to be a Chinese Jamaican woman really coming for black African people from Jamaica, particularly those of us who live foreign, yeah, in relation to issues of blackness, Africanness, and the possession of a passport or lack thereof. People are sending me this video and ask me what I have to say about it. And the reality is, I don't have nothing to say to she. Any non-African person from Jamaica or anywhere else in the world that has a problem with Africans from Jamaica, yard or foreign, asserting our Africanness and our blackness, that a feeding problem. This is not something that we should feel the need to justify, apologize for, or even explain, especially when you consider the colonial and neo-colonial experience of African Jamaicans and how that results in the migration of African Jamaicans, as well as the extent to which the colonizer attempted to sever us from a sense of heritage and a sense of culture. That alone tell you everything what you need to know about the mentality of the smaddy will make that the video there. So when I have nothing more to say about that except to affirm the teaching teachings of Marcus Mosiah Garvey when Africans of his time were being challenged in relation to our affirmation and assertion of racial and cultural pride. Let contrary sentiments and cross opinions go to the winds. We are entitled to our own opinions and not obligated or bound by the opinions of others. Awo. Having said that, I was listening to Running African, hosted by Sister Kabo Ma'at Keru Wadeya, and she featured a story on some events and conversations that were taking place in Jamaica on this issue. Take a listen.
You notice that there is a big conversation going on here in Jamaica right now about Mark Golding and whether or not he's black or white. And you heard a response, well, you know, we have all kinds of people, because the motto is out of many one. So this is what we're hearing now, right? That, we have Chinese Jamaican, we have Indian Jamaican, and so on. And the person who was speaking, I think it might have been Mr. Morgan himself, called out every other race Jamaican apart from African Jamaican. That in itself was telling.
So it does seem, yes, that the African Jamaicans' assertion and affirmation of our Africanness does seem to make some people very, very uncomfortable. And we should be aware of this and what agenda it serves. But beyond that, make we assert our Africanness and our blackness without fear or favor. And not make nobody make you feel shame or make you feel like you do them something wrong when you assert your blackness and your Africanness. Our heritage and our culture cannot be bound by a passport and cannot be dictated to us by anybody other than ourselves if we are guided by the principle of self-determination.
Number one, Jamaica is not an African nation. It's not a black country. We identify as an ethnically diverse society. People, please just stop it. Out of many, one people, Jamaicans. We do not hyphenate and we do not encourage separation by race. Number two, this one's mine.
You see, one thing about history that you have to know, you always have to open your mind to learn new things that you don't know. Because you meet people that will come with their own versions of the history. However, when it gets to a certain level, you will notice that, Charlie, this thing is getting a little bit biased. And with this particular video, for instance, I was with this woman. But then I saw another video where she was being a little bit biased, where she was talking about the accent of the Jamaicans. The way she framed the whole thing, she made it look like it was mainly influenced by the Irish people and a little bit of the Asians. You understand me? Without the Africans. And I mean, we all know the genesis of the whole patois. It's true Jamaica is a collection of different cultures, of different people. But when you look at the population, nobody should tell you that Africans were dominant. Apart from the original inhabitants of the land, the Red Ware people, who are the ancestors of the Tainos. Over 900,000 people were brought to this place, most popularly West Africa. The only non-African group of people that dominated the area, apart from the Africans, were the Irish people, who were brought in the 1600s by the British people after they conquered their land. Now, for those of you who don't know, Ireland was the first country to be colonized by the British, even before coming to Africa. But then, unlike the Africans, they came as indentured servants. They signed contracts to work in Jamaica. And that is where they formed what is called the Hiberno English, which is what they brought to Jamaica. Due to proximity and the way they were working with them on the plantation, they taught the West African people who were speaking the Pidgin and the Creole this type of English. This is what they mixed together and then came up with the patois. Now, these Chinese and the Indian people, they came around 1854 after the abolition of the slave trade in 1834, when most of the black people stopped working on the plantation. These Asians were brought to come and replace them. So they also came in as indentured servants. They contributed with their food, the Chinese cuisine and all of that. And then the music. You can't talk about reggae and ska without people like Byron Lee. Even though the rhythm and the pattern came from Africa, the instruments and the studio that they recorded came from these people, the Chinese people. But don't make it look like you played a huge role than anybody. You people are like 1.2% in Jamaica.
Salam alaikum, y'all. So, I don't know if you don't realize it, but there's been a bit of cuss over who is a Jamaican, who's not a Jamaican, what is a Jamaican. I just wanted to give the answer to that question. First things first, it seems that a lot of people never learn the difference between race, nationality, and ethnicity. That being said, it's very simple. Nationality is where you hold citizenship to, aka where you have a passport. The thing about a nationality is it's not stagnant. People are born in countries and leave those countries all the time, giving up one nationality for another. As it stands, I hold a Jamaican and US nationality. Tomorrow, I could easily become Italian British. Maybe not easily, but you know what I mean. Next is ethnicity. These are the cultural traditions, the language, the values that belong to a certain people group. Now, the thing about ethnicity is every ethnicity operates differently. For Jews, it's passed down matrilineally. So if your mother was Jewish, then you are Jewish. But for our Somali brothers and sisters, if your father is Somali, then you are Somali. Your ethnicity may also determine the languages you speak, the religions you practice, the cultural traditions you believe and hold dear. And then there's race, which out of the three holds very little weight. Because what might be considered black in one country is considered brown in the next and colored in another. Never forget that the Irish, the Italians, the Polish, when they came to the United States of America at various points in time, were not considered white, but today are. That being said, the island of Jamaica was first inhabited and settled by the indigenous people known as the Taino. They were the ones, after all, who gave the island the name Jamaica, meaning the land of wood and water. The island was then colonized by Spaniards from Spain, and with them came the Sephardic Jews from Portugal, as well as the first set of Africans that they would have enslaved. Shortly after, the British took control of the island and increased the amount of Africans being brought, but along with the British came the Welsh, the Scottish, and the Irish. By the time you hit 1838 and slavery is officially abolished, the British are now importing Chinese and Indians to Jamaica to replace the labor shortage. The first Indians arriving in 1845, the first Chinese arriving in 1854. And given that every generation is roughly 30 years, I think we can do the math to establish how many generations from the first people landed to now have been in this country. And of course, I cannot forget the Syrians who came to the island of Jamaica seeking refuge from the Ottoman Empire. Nor could I forget the poor Germans of Seaford Town that were brought to the island of Jamaica to buffer between the black and white populations. And although you won't hear the average Jamaican on the street using terms like African Jamaican, Asian Jamaican, you'll definitely hear him say words like the coolie man, the Chinese man, or the nigger man. I hope that clears everything up. Salam and walk good.
Jamaican patois literally tells us where our ancestors are from. I saw a post online the other day that said Jamaicans are not from Nigeria, but the language literally tells us another story. Whilst Jamaicans are not solely from Nigeria, we can't deny the history. Jamaicans are from a multitude of places. You know where the word una comes from? Igbo, a Nigerian language meaning you. Do you know where the word obia comes from? Igbo, meaning doctor. Do you know where the word nyam comes from? Fula, a language spoken in Nigeria and Ghana, which means to eat. Juk comes from Fula too, and it means to poke. Kaba kaba is used in Akan and in Yoruba, and it means inferior. Aki derives from Akan spoken in Ghana, meaning cashew fruit. Duppy comes from Akan too, meaning ghost. Anansi comes from Akan, meaning guess what? Spider. And Jino derives from the Ghanaian languages Akan and Twi, which means someone to not be taken seriously. Jamaican patois literally tells us that we come from a variety of places in West Africa. It's also made up of Spanish, Portuguese, and of course English, with a sprinkle of Arawak. And that's why they say out of many one people, because the language tells a story. The language tells us where we came from. And that's why it's always good to do your research.
Okay. I'm not black, I'm Jamaican. Like, scratch that. I'm not black, I'm Canadian. What kind of Canadian are you? I'm Jamaican. Is my skin close to black? Sure. For the sake of the people that live in the United States, I'm black. However, I'm not first to say I'm black. I'm quick to say I'm Jamaican. I'm not going to say I'm black. You can physically see what the fuck I am. Why am I going to tell you what color my skin is? That's literally irrelevant. So if someone's telling you they're not black, don't get offended. Get educated. People who say they're black don't have an identity. That's why they say they're black. And the people we are referring to are the ones that were in slavery in the United States that got pulled from all these black colored countries and mixed up. So now they don't know where the fuck they're from, so they just say black. So for Afro-Latina wants to say she's not black, she damn well is not black. The fuck, she knows where the fuck she's from. She's African and Latina. The fuck is to know she's black for? You see her skin is not black. Why does it matter? Like, please, fix it. Fix the education system.
Let me tell you about where Chinese Jamaican come from. You know, I talk about the nowadays Chinese Jamaican. I talk about the ones who come from in the 1800, early 1900 and them time there. And I realize that them not teaching them thing there. And nobody not really chat about it. The Chinese Jamaican people are some people who speak one language called Akga language. Wrong China, them have enough language and them wipe them out too. But the language where the Chinese Jamaican people speak are Akga. And what makes so much Akga people end up in Jamaica? Make we talk about where Akga people come from first and foremost. Akga people are some people where basically runway for 100 a year, sake of the war and the warrior them, we did a come in China and I start up enough war against the government. So we are back from in a 300 AD, some man run in and start war in China. And then after that, some other man called the Jurchen run in, start war in China. And every time they start war in China, the people from up with the war, they start run down and go south and go south and go south. Then the Mongol people run in China. And then Chinese people kick them out. And then the Manchu people run in China and take over China. So every time people run in China, the people will call themselves Hakka, start go down, further, till them reach at the bottom of China. Which part them call Fujian, and which part them call Guangdong. You understand? But the problem is, when them reach down there, them are not the first people where did it. So you find out, say, the people when you Hakka, we speak a language where old, it well old. It older than what them call Chinese, you know, which are Mandarin. Mandarin come out long time after Hakka. So what you find to say is when you talk about language like Japanese and you talk about language like Korean, the Chinese where them take and using a them language favor Hakka language more than it favor Mandarin. So all for me last name. You're not going to find that name of China again because them don't switch over to Mandarin officially. But if you go to Korea, you will hear people with female name, and that's true. Korean people take no for them name out of Chinese, and the Chinese, where did I go on them time there, when them take Chinese word, I did it favor Hakka. So what you know is that the Hakka people, they went poor. Because they never had no good land. You have man down there, I use up the whole of the land, landlord and them thing. Hakka people, they have to live on hilltop. On the ground when nobody never want. It's hard to farm, hard to grow nothing. So you find say Hakka people, them no bossy. Them eat sitting like a pig, like a pig eat for years, and they eat sitting like pickle and preserve vegetable because them they think they last. You understand? Can't waste. But what me know is in at the time, round the time when the British people them start calling for people come to Jamaica, finally it come up to a thing in a South China. Because it's the Hakka people I did sufferer. None of them I did sufferer. And then they have nothing and then get vexed because they couldn't get nothing. And the landlord them did take up the land, them couldn't get no land, them have to pay rent to the landlord. And so finally, you have one man down in South China, one man will fail exam. You don't know what 3 times he fail exam. And upon the 3rd time when he fail the exam, the missionary then went give him one track. And I don't know if he smoke some opium. I don't know what this boy do. When he start go mad and he start see vision. And he say, Jesus come to me and tell me say, me and him brother. And Jesus come to me and tell me say, we have to throw out the dirty foreigner them out of China. You see, them time the foreigner them did a rule China. Some man called Manchu will invade China, run up on Chinese people and kill off enough Chinese people. So in this I say, we have to do out the whole of them here foreigner in China. And him did Hakka. Enough Hakka people when join him and some other people join him. Well, see, from that time the people start think say, well, them are Hakka people are some warboat people. Them are some ruffian and bad man. And you see them the war they were up in China. When them go on China, I did some of the biggest war in history. If you look it up right now, Taiping Rebellion, it don't have so much people that most war in the world up to now can't touch what it do in China because them did a fight the foreigner them. But true, I did one thing where them burn out Confucianism. None of the Tapanari's Chinese never side with the rebellion there. Them fight against them because them never like them burn out ancestor worship and them burn out idol and all them thing there. And that same time there, when next war broke out in the part where Hakka people them did there, it named the Hakka Punti War. And the Cantonese people and the Hakka people catch up in the things and start to done them one another. And over the things are 1 or 2 million people dead in another war there. So you think about the part where Chinese Jamaican come from, full of a war, and that's some terrible war. You talk about World War I type of war. Them not tell you about. Because them not teach you that the history. But at this all Hakka people come from. And so when them make a call say come to Jamaica, enough Hakka people say, yo, me out, me cut. And then after that war done, against the foreigner where did rule China. Enough of them people they did have to run out of Jamaica. True, if they never run out, the government would have done them. And so you see them go all about the place, Malaysia, Hawaii, Jamaica, and them place there. And so when you talk about Hakka people of Jamaica, a people were part of history, we write down, or we ever run away from poverty, we ever run away from people who try to done with. They in our history. And even in China, the culture did off in America part there. But that are where we come from. So we talk about the Hakka, the Chinese Jamaican, where they are from a long time. A poverty we are run from. We are run from the sufferation. Because, remember say, enough things did go on in China. I mean, I even talk about the whole of them because them time there in China, enough of the European and the American and the Japanese did take control of China and I run the place. And that's one of the main reasons why make the revolution never go on in China in 1800 because they go hire some Yankee people to fight for them. So they could have win the war. But now Hakka people, no how we never want in the war. Or when the war done, we just decide say, yo, we left, we gone, we can't bother, it's a foolish.
Well, if you've watched to this end, thank you once again. And before I continue, I will kindly request that you hit the like, subscribe, and the share button as this will go a long way in supporting my channel. Well, the first Chinese Jamaican influencer that we saw in this video went by the name Mrs. Chin Chin, who is a Jamaican influencer known for making controversial statements on the internet. And during this specific episode, you're getting to see that she made some specific statements directly aimed at the Jamaican people, in which you're getting to see that most of them didn't take it lightly, as she was trying to directly attack the identity of the Jamaican people who had their roots back in Africa, and also threw jabs to how the Jamaican patois came into being, and also almost brought about the diaspora wars when she claimed that Jamaicans born out of Jamaica were not to be considered as being Jamaicans originally. And as much as these two statements sound to be very controversial, you're getting to see that there is a deep history that underlies the country Jamaica and how it relates to other people apart from the Africans who were brought to the country during the transatlantic slavery period, and how it has gone on to define Jamaica as a diverse country as it is today. To begin with, we need to understand how the African slaves found themselves in Jamaica. And this, as I mentioned before, happened during the transatlantic slave trade, where these Africans were sold into slavery to work in the sugarcane plantations in Jamaica and other Caribbean countries. And so, even after Jamaica got its independence, and slightly before that, slavery was abolished in the year 1824 by the British Empire. And this granted freedom to most of these slaves who were held as captives in these plantation farms. And after that, it is quite clear that a majority of the inhabitants, that is of Jamaica, were of black or were of African origin. And up to date, according to statistics, Jamaica is mainly composed of about 98% of the population composed of the individuals with African origin, in which most of them are blacks, and the only difference is that the other races came into the country later on after slavery had been abolished to work as indentured laborers. And this goes specifically to the Chinese people who came to Jamaica to offer their labor as the country was trying to rebuild and become what it is today. And as a free state, most of these individuals were welcome into Jamaica. We understand there is also Persians, Arabs, Indians, and also people of British origin who finally managed to settle into Jamaica, making it a diverse country as it is known today. And this is where the Jamaica motto, out of many, one people, comes from. But according to Mrs. Chin Chin, whatever she is claiming, she's trying to wipe out the African identity of the Jamaican people. And before I get into her argument, you need to understand that there are three distinct things that most people are usually not aware of. First, there is a difference in nationality, ethnicity, and race of an individual. And using this case in this video, let's say for a Chinese individual who or whose ancestors came into Jamaica as indentured laborer, settled into the country, and finally managed to get the Jamaican citizenship. To them, their nationality is Jamaican. They were born in Jamaica and they acquired the Jamaican citizenship, and so they pledge their allegiance to Jamaica. But again, here is where the major difference comes in. When you're talking about the ethnicity of these individuals is majorly tied to their countries of origin. So when such an individual is asked where their ethnicity comes from, the answer here is they are Chinese, and that is their ethnicity that they shared from or with their ancestors. And when you talk about the race, then this is where the umbrella term Asians comes in. And so when this lady tries to downplay the ethnicity and race of other Jamaicans in the country, she is simply trying to wipe away the identity and culture of the Jamaican people by claiming that Jamaica is a hugely diverse country, even considering the fact that almost 98% of the population is composed of black individuals or individuals having African origin, and it's only the 2% that is composed of individuals from other races who actually make the elite few in Jamaica who manage the economic and political powers in the country, leaving the other 98 individuals who are former descendants of slaves battling or struggling with poverty and other hard life situations in the country. And this is what has been recently causing the rift between the Jamaicans, that is Jamaicans with African origins, or let's call them African Jamaicans, and the Chinese community. As you've noticed, going back to history, there have always been rife or riots committed by the Jamaicans, that is African Jamaicans, against the Chinese Jamaicans who settled in the country, as most of them believe that these Chinese individuals in the country are taking away opportunity from themselves, as they tend to pull away from the general black Jamaican population, as they are given the opportunity to run businesses in which most of these Jamaicans view as being exploitative. And even up to date, some of these individuals still claim that most Jamaicans are being racist to them, as Jamaicans are well known to have specific names that are specifically coined to refer to these Chinese individuals. And in multiple cases, you've seen African Jamaicans rioting against the Chinese. And this actually goes to show the history in which the Chinese individuals in Jamaica have shared with the African Jamaicans in the country. But putting that back in history, you need to understand that the relationship that China right now as a country that it still has with Jamaica is one of the most impressive relationships, as we're getting to see that China, under the Bridge and Road Initiative, is actually playing a major role in building crucial infrastructure in Jamaica, that is like roads, buildings, and also the ports, something that is making massive impact in the country. And so this goes to show the deep historical tie that Jamaica still has with China, despite of the fact that there is a crop, or there is a group of individuals who are still trying to push for this divisive commentary as they try to change the narrative to suit themselves. And for the Jamaican and for the Chinese Jamaican lady, making such outrageous statements is something that, as you have already seen, cannot be entirely tolerated with most Jamaicans, as most Jamaicans actually actively identify with their African origin, as they still have these bits of their roots to Africa that they still enjoy and they have incorporated into their culture today as Jamaicans, or as the former descendants of African slaves. And so for the Chinese community, they are loved in Jamaica, despite of the fact that they are still a minority group in the country, but they still have a major impact in the country. Well, this again gets to mark the end of this episode. Thank you once again for watching to this end, and see you in the next one.